My wife orchestrated my amnesia after my affair to keep me loyal, but now I'm leaving her for the other woman. Let me take you back to a time when everything seemed perfect. My name is Jack, and I was a typical guy in my late 30s, married to my college sweetheart Sarah. We met during our freshman year at university, a time filled with excitement, late-night study sessions, and endless cups of coffee. I was a budding graphic designer, full of dreams and aspirations, and Sarah was a brilliant marketing major with an ambitious streak that drew me in from the very beginning. Our relationship was a whirlwind of love and passion. We clicked in a way that felt almost magical. Sarah was the kind of woman who could light up a room with her smile, and her intelligence was both alluring and intimidating. She was driven and hardworking, always focused on her career, which I admired deeply. Our shared interests in art and literature laid the foundation for a strong partnership, and we spent countless evenings discussing everything from the latest novels to our favorite films. Sarah was my anchor. She worked as a marketing manager for a tech company, and I found my passion in graphic design, freelancing for various clients. We lived in a cozy apartment in a vibrant neighborhood filled with cafes, parks, and art galleries. Our weekends were often spent exploring local exhibitions or hiking in the nearby mountains. We laughed, shared our hopes and dreams, and created a life together that many envied. In our early years, we embraced life with open arms, taking spontaneous road trips and exploring new cities. I can still remember that one summer when we drove up the coast, singing along to our favorite songs and stopping at little diners along the way. Those moments were pure bliss, and I thought they would last forever. But like many relationships, the initial spark began to fade over time. The routine of daily life settled in, and I started feeling restless. I felt like I was missing something, and I couldn't quite put my finger on it. Was it excitement, adventure, or just the thrill of feeling desired? That's when I met Mia. I still remember the day vividly. It was a Friday evening at a local art gallery opening, a space filled with bright colors and eclectic pieces. Mia was there showcasing her photography, her energy vibrant and infectious. She moved with a grace that caught my attention, and I found myself captivated by her presence. We struck up a conversation, discussing the stories behind her work and the emotions captured in her images. Mia was free-spirited and adventurous, a freelance photographer who traveled the world to capture its beauty. She had a way of seeing life through a unique lens, and her passion was palpable. The moment felt electric, and I knew I was in trouble. As we talked, I learned more about her life, how she had been to places I could only dream of, capturing moments in bustling markets in Marrakesh, serene landscapes in New Zealand, and street art in Berlin. She spoke with enthusiasm about her projects, and I found myself hanging on every word. It was a refreshing change from the monotony I had been feeling in my life. As the evening progressed, we exchanged numbers, and what started as friendly conversations quickly spiraled into something much more complicated. Mia and I began meeting for coffee, gallery openings, and long walks through the city. Each encounter felt like a breath of fresh air, a stark contrast to the weight of my responsibilities at home. Before I knew it, we were meeting more frequently, sharing secrets and stolen glances. One fateful afternoon, we found ourselves alone in her studio, the air thick with tension. We had been talking about photography, but the conversation quickly shifted to more personal topics. It happened in a moment of weakness. One kiss turned into a passionate affair that felt thrilling yet utterly wrong. I was betraying the woman who had stood by me through everything. The rush of adrenaline was intoxicating, but as I left her studio that day, I was filled with guilt. Over the following weeks, our secret rendezvous continued. Our affair was reckless, and I was addicted to the thrill of sneaking around, living a double life. We spent countless nights together, exploring the city, sharing dreams, and losing ourselves in each other. But every time I went home to Sarah, the weight of my betrayal hung over me like a dark cloud. I became skilled at juggling my time between Mia and Sarah. I would often lie about late meetings or working late when I was really with Mia. My heart would race with guilt every time I entered our home, but the allure of Mia was too strong to resist. I justified my actions, convincing myself that Sarah was too busy with work to notice or care. Despite the thrill of my affair, I couldn't shake the feeling of unease that had begun to settle in my stomach. I could sense that something was off with Sarah. Her once bubbly personality became more subdued, and she often seemed lost in thought. I dismissed it at first, attributing it to her demanding job. One night, after a particularly stressful week, Sarah came home visibly upset. She sat down across from me at the dinner table and sighed deeply. "Jack, can we talk?" she asked, her voice shaking slightly. My heart dropped. I knew that tone all too well. "I've just been feeling overwhelmed lately. I love you, but I feel like we're drifting apart. I don't want to lose what we have," she confessed, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. Panic gripped me. I didn't know how to respond. "I love you too, Sarah. We can work on this," I said, trying to reassure her while my mind raced with thoughts of Mia. I had to keep my double life intact, but the guilt was beginning to consume me. Then everything changed in an instant. One night, after yet another argument with Sarah about her work schedule, I was distracted and drove home recklessly. The road was slick from rain, and I lost control of my car. I remember the screech of tires and the sudden jolt as I collided with a tree. When I woke up in the hospital, the world around me felt surreal. I had no memory of the accident or the life I had been living. The fluorescent lights buzzed above me, and the sterile smell of antiseptic filled the air. As I blinked, familiar faces came into view, but they felt foreign. Sarah was there, her eyes filled with worry, and she held my hand tightly. "Jack, thank God you're awake. You had me so scared," she exclaimed, relief washing over her features. I struggled to piece together the fragments of my life. "What happened? How did I get here?" I asked, my voice hoarse. "You were in an accident," she explained, her voice trembling. "But you're going to be okay. I'm here for you." As she spoke, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. I felt lost and confused, grappling with a blank slate where my memory should have been. The doctors ran tests and monitored my condition, assuring me that I would recover. But inside, I felt like a stranger in my own life. Months passed, and I was beginning to feel like my old self again. I worked hard to recover, both physically and emotionally. Sarah took time off work to care for me, pouring her love and attention into our relationship. I started to regain my strength and independence, but there was an emptiness inside me. During my recovery, Sarah was the perfect caregiver, attending to my every need. She brought me books to read, watched movies with me, and encouraged me to get back to my graphic design work. Slowly, I began to rebuild my life. I started picking up projects again, reconnecting with clients and rediscovering my passion for design. As I regained my strength, I wanted to believe that we could start fresh. Sarah and I went on weekend trips to the mountains, rekindling the connection we had once shared. We hiked together, laughed, and reminisced about our early years. I clung to those moments, hoping they would overshadow the betrayal of my past. Just as I began to feel more grounded in my new reality, everything changed again when Mia unexpectedly showed up at my workplace one day. I was in the middle of a design project when she walked in, her presence electrifying but also terrifying. She looked just as stunning as I remembered, her long hair framing her face, but there was an edge of sadness in her eyes. "Jack," she said softly, taking a step closer, "I need to talk to you." My heart raced. I felt a rush of emotions, fear, excitement, and guilt swirling within me. I had thought about Mia often during my recovery, wondering if she missed me, but I never expected to see her again. "What are you doing here?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. Mia's eyes were filled with intensity. "I came to see you because I couldn't stop thinking about you. You promised you would leave Sarah for me, remember? You told me you loved me." Her words hit me like a punch to the gut. The memories of our time together flooded back. Our laughter, our intimacy, the connection that had felt so real. I felt a wave of guilt crash over me as I thought about how I had left that life behind in pursuit of healing. I stammered, unsure of how to respond. "Things are complicated now, Mia. I don't know what to say." The next few days were a whirlwind. Mia and I began meeting in secret again, discussing our feelings and what could have been. She was everything I craved, spontaneous, adventurous, and vibrant. But at the same time, Sarah was there, nurturing and loving, helping me heal. I found myself torn between two worlds. On one hand, there was Sarah, who had stood by me during my darkest moments, and on the other, there was Mia, who represented everything that felt alive and thrilling. Every time I met with Mia, I felt a rush of emotions, but returning to Sarah felt like slipping back into a comfortable, familiar routine. Mia confronted me one evening as we sat in a quiet cafe. "Jack, you can't keep pretending. You deserve to be happy. You know that, right? You can't let Sarah's loyalty trap you. You deserve to live your truth." Her words lingered in my mind long after we parted. I knew she was right. I couldn't keep living a lie. But the thought of hurting Sarah, the woman who had dedicated herself to caring for me, felt unbearable. I was caught in a web of my own making, and I had to find a way to break free. As the days turned into weeks, the weight of my decisions grew heavier. I struggled with insomnia, tossing and turning as I replayed my choices in my mind. My thoughts were a jumbled mess of guilt, desire, and fear. The emotional turmoil was exhausting, and I found myself snapping at Sarah over trivial matters, the strain becoming evident. One evening, after another frustrating argument about our future, I sat in our living room feeling completely lost. Sarah came in, her expression pained. "Jack, I can't keep pretending everything is okay. You seem so distant, and I need to know what's going on in your heart," she said, her voice trembling. I hesitated, my heart racing. I knew I had to be honest, but the fear of hurting her consumed me. I couldn't look her in the eyes as I spoke. I've been seeing someone else, Sarah." The silence that followed was deafening. Sarah's face fell, her eyes widening in shock. "What do you mean? After everything I did for you?" she whispered, her voice breaking. "I'm so sorry," I managed to say, tears welling up in my eyes. "I never meant for it to happen. It was a mistake." The confrontation that followed was painful. Sarah's heart shattered in front of me, and I could see the pain in her eyes. "How could you do this to me? I stood by you when you were hurt, when you lost your memory. I thought we were rebuilding our life together," she cried, her voice filled with anguish. In that moment, I realized how deeply I had hurt her. My actions had consequences, and I was forced to confront the reality of my choices. "I didn't want to hurt you, Sarah. I was lost, and I didn't know how to find my way back." As the night wore on, Sarah and I talked about everything, our relationship, my mistakes, and the choices I had to make. We cried, shouted, and ultimately sat in silence, grappling with the reality that our marriage was on the brink of collapse. After that night, I made the difficult decision to leave our home temporarily to give both of us space. I needed to think clearly about what I wanted, and Sarah needed time to process the betrayal. I moved into a small apartment nearby, feeling lost and vulnerable. Mia reached out, and I found myself drawn to her again. We spent time together, exploring the city and talking late into the night about our dreams and desires. But in the back of my mind, I felt the weight of my decision to leave Sarah hanging over me. One night, while we were sitting on a rooftop overlooking the city, Mia turned to me and said, "Jack, I want you to be happy, but I can't be a rebound for you. I need to know you're sure about this." Her words struck a chord. I realized that I was still grappling with my feelings for both women. My heart was torn between a life built on familiarity and a new path that felt exhilarating. I couldn't string Mia along if I wasn't ready to fully commit. Finally, after weeks of turmoil, I returned to Sarah's apartment to talk things through one last time. She opened the door, her eyes reflecting a mix of anger and sadness. We sat down together, the air thick with tension. "Have you been seeing her again?" she asked, her voice steady but laced with pain. I nodded, the guilt weighing heavily on me. "I'm sorry, Sarah. I didn't want to hurt you, but I have feelings for her. I think I need to explore that part of my life." Tears streamed down her face as she whispered, "I thought we could work through this. I stood by you, Jack. I loved you through the hardest moments of your life." "I know, and I can't thank you enough for that," I replied, my voice cracking. "But I can't keep living this lie. You deserve someone who is fully committed to you." As the finality of my words sank in, we both knew that our marriage was ending. It was a heartbreaking moment, but it also felt like a release, a chance for both of us to find our own paths. We hugged tightly, both of us sobbing as we let go of the love we once shared. After leaving Sarah's apartment, I felt an overwhelming sense of freedom mixed with sorrow. I knew that I had made the right choice for both of us, but the pain of losing Sarah lingered in my heart. I reached out to Mia, ready to embrace the unknown. As I began my new life with Mia, I took the time to reflect on my past and the lessons I had learned. I realized that love is not always easy, and sometimes it comes at a cost. But I was determined to build a future that aligned with my true self, a life filled with passion, adventure, and the freedom to be who I truly was. Months passed, and I found myself happier than I had been in a long time. Mia and I traveled together, exploring new cities, capturing moments through her lens, and sharing our dreams. I had learned to embrace the uncertainties of life and to find joy in the journey. As I looked back on my life with Sarah, I held no ill will. Our time together had shaped me, taught me about love and loyalty. I was grateful for the memories we had created, but I was ready to forge a new path. In the end, I learned that life is a series of choices, each one leading us closer to who we are meant to be. I had made my mistakes, but I was committed to living authentically and embracing the adventure that lay ahead.